Mom. Dad is saying something. My grandson, Henry, said this while staring at my son, John's portrait. The portrait of John, of course, remained still. It was probably Henry's sixth sense kicking in again. Henry, stop that. Let's go play with Mom over there. Yeah, but Dad is really angry. He said this person pushed me into the street. We couldn't believe who Henry was pointing at. My name is Kate. I am a housewife in my 60s. I currently live with my husband Sam in the penthouse of a high-rise apartment building. I love the view from our room, especially while enjoying freshly brewed coffee and cookies. The morning sunlight pours in beautifully, and at night, the city lights create a stunning view. I never imagined we could live like this. I'm really grateful to Sam. Normally, people might hold a champagne glass and nibble on cheese while admiring the night view. But for us, coffee and cookies are just perfect. We didn't always live this dream life. It's only recently that we could afford such luxury. Sam is now the CEO of a major corporation, but getting there was far from easy. We married in our 20s, both coming from families that couldn't be described as wealthy. We had to earn our own way through life. He worked late every night, while I took part-time cleaning jobs at offices, juggling this with raising our son. We barely made ends meet. I'm sorry for all the hardship. One day, I'll make sure you can live comfortably. Let's keep pushing forward for now. It's okay. I'll support you. Let's do this together. Even through tough times, we lived with mutual care and respect. Our little indulgence during those years was occasionally buying cookies and sharing them. Our efforts paid off 8 years ago. Sam, always skilled at his work, was eventually recognized for his dedication and promoted to an executive position. He then left the company to fulfill his dream of starting his own business, eventually becoming its president. Despite his busy schedule, he makes sure to take weekends off, allowing us to spend quality time together. Our relationship has remained strong. Recently, he has been talking about succession planning. Considering his age, he hopes to pass the company to our only son, John, someday. One day, while I was washing dishes, I heard my smartphone ring behind me. I quickly dried my hands and picked up the phone. The caller ID displayed John's name. Hello? Mom? It's been a while. How have you been? I'm good. It's rare for you to call. After I said that, John began speaking with a slightly sheepish look. Actually, there's someone I want to marry. Can I bring her over next time? The thought of my once little John, now grown up and ready to start his own family, filled me with joy and relief. Congratulations. Of course, that's fine. I'm looking forward to it. The day John was bringing his fiancée over, I couldn't calm my nerves. What should I wear? Does she drink coffee? Maybe she prefers tea? Seeing me in such a state. Calm down. Sam chuckled and said. While I was rushing to prepare, the doorbell rang. Coming. After a moment, John and his fiancée entered the house. Nice to meet you. My name is Mary. Here, please accept this. Mary handed us a bag from a famous patisserie with a polite gesture. Thank you. Let's enjoy these together. Coffee sounds perfect. I mumbled to myself as I brewed the coffee. She had a serene and elegant demeanor, and her speech and manners reflected her sophistication. She worked for a major company and intended to continue working after marriage to avoid placing all the burden on John. John, she's too good for you. That's not true. Dad, Mom, you should meet Mary's family next time. You're right. Mary, we look forward to getting to know you better. Our family welcomed their marriage with smiles, and John and Mary looked radiant with happiness. After that, family meetings and wedding preparations proceeded smoothly. Her family consisted of her parents and her younger sister, Karen. Just as I had initially thought, her family seemed refined and well established. Her parents had been running a business for many years. And Karen, like Mary, was a working woman. Mary, I'm so glad you found such a wonderful person. I hope to have a happy family someday too. For now, my job is my boyfriend. Mary's family was easy to talk to, and I felt confident we would get along well. Wanting to celebrate their eldest daughter's once-in-a-lifetime wedding grandly, Mary's parents planned a wedding with 300 guests. The costs were honestly quite a challenge, but we shared the same desire to celebrate John. So, we agreed with Mary's parents' wishes. John and Mary were delighted to receive blessings from many relatives and friends. Mary, I want to be a grandma soon, I said. Mom, we just finished the wedding. It's too soon, John replied. I was already excited, imagining the grandchildren who would come one day. 2 years later, John and Mary had a child named Henry. He was our first grandchild and an adorable addition to the family. Henry, it's Grandpa. Henry, it's Karen. Henry was the darling of everyone, brightening up the room just by being there. During summer vacations and Christmas, John and Mary often brought Henry to visit both Mary's family and our home. Spending time with Henry and having meals together became something I looked forward to. Wrapped in a warm atmosphere, Henry grew up well. However, around the time Henry turned 3, something strange started happening. Henry would say, "What's wrong? Why are you leaving? Henry, there's no one over there. Come back here," I would say as I pulled Henry back from the empty balcony he was talking to. Puzzled, I asked Mary, "Does this happen often? He seems to be talking to someone who isn't there." "Yes, it's been happening more lately. I got worried and took him to the doctor, but they said there's nothing wrong." Sometimes children with strong spiritual senses show these behaviors. "We can only keep an eye on him," Sam added. Henry was adorable, but his peculiar actions gave me an uneasy feeling. Little did I know that Henry's mysterious ability would later lead to a significant event. One day, some time later, I was abruptly woken up in the middle of the night. "Kate! Something terrible has happened!" Sam, who had been sleeping next to me, shook me awake. I slowly lifted my heavy body. "What is it? What's wrong at this hour?" "Mary just called. John was in a car accident and is in critical condition." "What?" I don't remember much after that. Before I knew it, we had arrived at the hospital and rushed to John's room. However, John had already passed away. "John! Please don't leave us. I'm begging you." Sam and I stood there in disbelief, unable to grasp that this was really happening. Mary clung to Henry, holding his hand as she wept. After a while, the reality of the situation hit me, and an overwhelming sadness took hold. "This can't be real. John, please open your eyes. John!" I cried out, breaking down in Sam's arms. I cried until I had no more tears left. And Sam, too, cried out loud like I had never seen before. In the days that followed, I was unable to do anything and stayed holed up at home. At first, I was too grief-stricken to eat or sleep. While time passed and those around me began to move on, my heart remained hollow. Sam tried to cheer me up by taking me for walks, and Mary and Henry visited to check on me, but I couldn't look forward. Time just passed, leaving me behind. Before I knew it, it was time for John's one-year memorial. Time flies, doesn't it? It feels like just yesterday John was here. So happy, I said. I talked with Mary's parents and Karen, whom I hadn't seen in a while due to my reclusiveness. Losing such a wonderful young man must have been very hard. But I'm sure John is watching over us from above, said Mary's mother. Yes, he was such a bright child. Please let us know if there's anything we can do for you, Karen added. Thank you. But it's Mary who is suffering the most. She looked at John's portrait, saying, The time I spent with John and Henry was truly joyous. John was always someone who would hug us every day. He really was a wonderful person. Mary, you're so loved. It was the first time since the wedding that we had all laughed together. In the peaceful atmosphere, I started to feel a bit more at ease. But then, Henry began to act strangely. He stared intently at John's portrait, looking around restlessly. Yes, yes. Henry muttered to himself. Henry? I called out. Mom, Dad is saying something. Henry said, still looking at the portrait. Of course, the image of John remained motionless. Henry's spiritual sensitivity must have been at work again. Or so I thought. Henry, stop that. Come play with Mom over here, I suggested. Okay. But Dad is really angry. Angry? John is angry? Henry, what is John angry about? Then Henry stood up and pointed to someone, uttering unbelievable words. Dad says it was her who pushed me onto the road. We couldn't believe who Henry was pointing at. What? It was Mary's sister, Karen. Stop joking, Henry. What are you saying? Come on, let's go play over there, Karen said, trying to deflect the tension. No. I'm not going. Dad says I shouldn't get close to Karen. He says she did this to him, Henry said forcefully. The once calm atmosphere became tense as everyone turned to look at Karen. Karen, what is he talking about? I asked. Wait. Stop it. Henry, you shouldn't say things like that. Everyone, don't believe a child's words. I feel sick. I'm leaving, Karen exclaimed, unable to take it anymore. She quickly ran out of the room. Karen, wait. What's going on? Confused, everyone followed Karen. We spent hours searching for her, but she was nowhere to be found. We checked the neighborhood park, around the house, and called her repeatedly, but she didn't answer. By the time evening approached, we spotted a small crowd by the riverside nearby. Through the crowd, we saw Karen. Let me go! Let go of me! Karen screamed. As we approached, we saw several police officers around her. A police officer noticed us and approached. She's my sister. What's going on? I asked. We're arresting her on suspicion of murder. What? The traffic accident that caused John's death had several suspicious points, and the police had been investigating ever since. Although it happened late at night with few witnesses, inconsistencies in the driver's account and discrepancies from the dashcam footage had raised red flags. The police had secretly been treating John's accident as a potential crime, and now they were arresting Karen, his sale, as the suspect. It turned out the police had been monitoring her for some time. I'm innocent. Let go of me, Karen yelled as she was taken away, her parents helplessly watching the scene unfold. Seeing her being taken away, everyone stood there in disbelief, as if it were all a bad dream. After Karen's arrest, our hearts were completely exhausted. With John's accident and Karen's arrest, So much had happened in just 1 year. It was no wonder we were all worn out. But why did it have to be Karen, a family member? In the interrogation, Karen said, "When Mary first introduced me to John, I wanted him for myself. I've repeatedly told John to leave Mary and be with me, but he never gave me any attention. So, I thought, he should just disappear." Karen's actions, driven by jealousy towards Mary, were selfish and malicious. Knowing this fact left Mary devastated and in a terrible mental state. Losing her husband to her own sister and then having that sister arrested was more than she could bear. Although Karen remained silent after her confession, leaving many details unclear, it was evident that her actions were driven by her own selfish desires. Time passed, but the families had to move forward and live their lives. Eventually, people stopped talking about the incident. One day, as Sam and I were relaxing in the living room, Sam spoke up. "Kate, we're almost in our 70s. I always hoped John would take over the business, but now I think it's time to pass the company to the next generation. How about we take it easy and enjoy our time together? You're still full of energy, Sam. But yes, after everything that's happened, it might be nice to take it easy." Though Sam had always maintained a cheerful demeanor, he must have been exhausted as well. We decided together that Sam would hand over the company to a new successor. A year later. "Sam, I'll do my best from today. Mary, I'm counting on you." The company presidency was passed to our DIL, Mary. With this change, our household grew to include Mary and Henry. "Kate, I really appreciate you taking care of Henry." "It's all right. You have your work to focus on, and we're happy to spend time with Henry. Lean on us as much as you need." "Thank you." With John's death and Karen's arrest, Mary was ridden with guilt and wanted to support us in any way she could. Hearing about Sam's retirement, she volunteered to take over as president. Though there was some opposition from the company, Sam's strong recommendation ensured Mary's appointment. Mary worked diligently, while Sam and I took care of Henry. Almost like raising a second child. "Grandpa, Grandma, there's a sports day coming up. You have to come and watch." "Of course. We'll make all your favorite foods and cheer you on." "Yeah. Make sure to bring sandwiches. And there's a dance, too. I hope I can do it well." These moments were filled with happiness. Mary worked hard as the new president, and Sam was finally able to rest, saying, "I'm glad we entrusted the company to Mary. Now I can truly retire." The company stabilized, and Sam was finally able to relax. However, our happiness did not last long. Mary began coming home late every night and was frequently away on weekends. Our time together dwindled significantly. Though we occasionally asked her to spend more time at home, she always said she couldn't. "I'm sorry. I have a meeting with clients, so I'll be late. I have a business trip for 3 days, so please take care of Henry." She had been leaving Henry with us without any regard. And the number of nights she came home drunk increased. "Mary, you're drinking too much. Every single day. You need to think about what you're doing." I said, "It's fine. I'm just entertaining clients. It's part of my job." She slurred, clearly intoxicated. Sam and I exchanged weary looks inside. Then one day, a company holiday. While spending time in the living room, Henry's peculiar murmurs surfaced again. "Dad, don't be mad. Don't be mad at Mom," Henry said, clutching his ears and frowning in pain. "Henry, are you hearing John's voice again?" I asked. "Yeah. Dad's really angry, but I can't understand what he's saying. Is he angry because Mary comes home drunk every night? No, it's not that. Dad is scary, Henry replied. John was angry. I had a gut feeling that something bad was happening. Worried about Mary's strange behavior, I called a detective agency and requested an investigation into her activities. They looked into her movements. After leaving the house, her supposed business trips, and the restaurants where she had her meetings. A week later, I received the results, which were shocking. Mary had hardly been doing her job as president, instead using company money for her affairs with men. She stayed in luxury hotels, claiming it was for business trips, and charged everything to the company's credit card. She bought numerous luxury items and visited multiple clubs every night, spending large sums of money. But that wasn't all. Mary had been sending company money to her parents, enabling them to live lavishly. Despite running a business, they hadn't been very successful. After Mary became president, they abandoned their work, using the money to buy a new house and cars, living in luxury. Since we rarely visited Mary's parents, we were completely unaware of this situation. Henry's murmurs had indeed been revealing the truth. I quickly called Mary over. I'm busy with meetings today, so can we make this quick? She said, her tone dismissive. I showed her the investigation report. Look at this. What do you think you're doing? So, you found out. Fine, I'll tell you everything, she said, her face taking on an eerie expression I had never seen before. The reason I married John was for the money. I heard he was a candidate for president, but he showed no sign of becoming president anytime soon. So I thought it would be faster for me to become president. Mary continued with more shocking revelations. And I was the one who ordered Karen to do what she did. I never expected her to get caught. She covered for me and took the blame herself. That's the truth. My anger boiled over. Mary! What do you think of John? He died because of you. The only ones who are terrible are you, Kate. Flaunting your wealth and your luxurious life. I grew up in a poor family, so I deserve to enjoy this. My parents are happy too, Mary replied without a hint of remorse. Furious, I shouted. You and your family are incredibly selfish. You took his life for your desires. You've left us with broken hearts. It's the fault of those who are deceived, she sneered. I can't believe how horrible you've been. Poor John. Mary, today I sever all ties with you. You will step down as president immediately. I'll inform the company later, I declared. Get out now. I'm calling the police. Never come back here again. Pay for your crimes, I yelled. Mary laughed, and Sam and I handed her over to the police. Soon, they arrived, and Mary was arrested. Her parents were also arrested for receiving stolen company funds. Our family fell into the trap set by Mary and her family, losing our son and company money. Henry lost both his father and mother. He watched as his mother was taken away by the police. Seeing Henry's face, Sam and I vowed to protect him no matter what. Years passed. Despite the continuous misfortunes that had befallen him, Henry grew into a kind and gentle boy. Grandpa, Grandma, let's take a picture over there, he called out. Sure, under that beautiful tree sounds nice, I replied. Today was Henry's middle school entrance ceremony. Sam and I officially became Henry's guardians, and the three of us now live peacefully together. Henry's strange murmurs disappeared years ago. We are looking forward to a bright future with Henry. But if anything ever happens again, I hope he will murmur again. so that the three of us can continue to live happily together. You can't possibly handle a divorce. Grace, my sister-in-law, looked down on me with a mocking laugh. Anyway, cool your head. My husband Matthew, face red with anger, was shouting, spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and my sister. If you don't want to, we're getting a divorce. I had been waiting for these words. Fine, it's a divorce then. You're okay with that, right? I endured insults and scorn to draw out these words. All the evidence is in place. Saying those words, you've doomed yourself to hell. My name is Zoe. A 29-year-old housewife with no children. I used to work at a clothing manufacturer, but quit 3 years ago after getting married, and now I sew as a hobby. Matthew is 32, sweated it out in the rugby team during college, and got a job at a major housing manufacturer through rugby connections. His body is imposing in every dimension, giving off an intimidating presence. If I so much as talk back or display more knowledge than Matthew, he instantly gets moody and starts lecturing. Now, all I think about is how to live without upsetting Matthew. Additionally, the silent pressure from not having children weighs on me from Matthew and the in-laws. Yesterday, Grace got divorced. Grace got divorced. I could picture Grace's sharp-featured, stern face. Is that so? It was expected. I couldn't imagine Grace's intense personality sustaining a marriage for long. Not much of a reaction from you. Matthew glared at me. It's not that, I was too shocked to speak. I wonder if I managed to hide my lack of surprise. Thinking it was inevitable she'd get divorced would surely lead to trouble later. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Almost dropped the cup I was holding. That was a close one. I managed to deflect. Otherwise, I would have been in for a lecture. Matthew's typical lectures began to fill my head. The toilet was dirty. The rice was hard. You don't work, so you should at least take care of the house more carefully. His go-to line was always, "Who do you think is feeding you?" Matthew never laid a hand on me. Instead, he chipped away at my spirit with his words. Having children might change things, but there's no sign of that happening yet. I've decided to do it. Matthew looked at me irritably. Oops. I must have missed what he said. I'm sorry. The shock made me zone out. Not again, hopefully, it won't lead to a lecture. So, Grace's husband Paul cheated on her. He even canceled the lease on the apartment Dad and Mom also lived in and moved out alone. Matthew continued speaking. Seems he's in a good mood. I couldn't believe the always smiling and kind Paul could cheat. It'd be more believable if Grace were the one cheating. Divorce papers were forced on her, she's really down. Being a housewife, she has no income and is struggling. How about alimony or child support? If it's a divorce due to cheating, she should be able to divide the property and claim alimony and child support. There's no way she could get that. Matthew slammed his fist on the table. I involuntarily tensed up. Don't act so high and mighty, you couldn't possibly understand all that. Stop talking like you know everything. You're not smart enough to think about such complicated things. My mouth was dry and I couldn't speak. All you do is sit at the sewing machine all day. Such a demeaning way to talk about my passion is too cruel. I could never say this face to face, but sewing is my only hobby and passion. Recently, the dresses I've made have been well received, and some people have even expressed interest in buying them. Poor Harper too, she's only 7, doesn't understand what her dad did. And my parents too, I wonder what they'll do. Matthew seems to be in a good mood, not in lecture mode. Can't we do something for them? Well, I'll go take a bath for now. I need to prepare Matthew's change of clothes. If there's no new clothes ready after his bath, it'll spoil his mood. I'll go to my sister's place tomorrow. I couldn't imagine the always gentle Paul cheating. He always seemed to be at Grace's beck and call. Joseph and Olivia were tough on Paul, too. Maybe that's why he cheated. But he always seemed so kind to the children. It's natural to think custody of Harper will go to Grace. Considering Harper is in the lower grades of elementary school, her future struggles come to mind. But if the affair is true, she could get compensation and child support. Why was he so angry about it? I can never tell where his boiling point really is. It's truly exhausting to always talk in fear. The next day, Matthew brought up the same topic as yesterday. We really should do something to help. What does he mean by something? A question pops into my head. Live together, maybe? Joseph and Olivia lived with them, but it's impossible for 6 people to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. How about Grace uses our bedroom, and we let Dad and the rest use the room where you have your sewing machine? We'll figure out somewhere for us to sleep. Matthew says it so lightly, but it's impossible. I had forgotten how much Matthew loves his family. Christmas, summer vacations, everyone's birthdays, we always gather at his parents' house. I've always felt uncomfortable around Matthew's family. But to have no place to sleep and not be able to sew. Matthew slammed his fist on the table. I instinctively tensed up. This isn't the time to listen to your selfishness. Helping the family is important. Is wanting a place to sleep and to continue my only joy, sewing, really being selfish? I felt dizzy. I realized talking to him is pointless. The next day, I met with my college friend Madison at a cafe for a change of scenery. It was a long-awaited reunion, but I found myself complaining about my home life. That's definitely emotional abuse. Yeah, I thought so too, but I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I thought it was okay as long as I followed what Matthew said and didn't get yelled at. Tears started to spill. Now's not the time to cry. What you need to do is escape from there. Madison handed me her business card. It had a law firm's name and the title of legal assistant on it. After graduating from college, I went back to study and entered law school. Now, I'm working part-time at that law firm. I was surprised that Madison, who was flashy and playful in college, had become a law student. Our office has a lot of excellent lawyers who are strong in divorce cases. Could I also become free if I got away from these people? The thought lifted a weight off my shoulders, and I suddenly felt relieved. As we said goodbye, "You've endured a lot so far. You don't have to endure anymore." Madison gently patted my head. A week later, I returned from shopping to find Grace and Harper in the living room, with Matthew sitting across from them. It's a weekday, why is Matthew here? And Grace and her family, too. Looking curiously at Matthew. Yeah, I left work early. It's a big deal for us, can't be working at a time like this, he said. Grace looked at me with a smug face, looking down on me. I'm thirsty. I want peach-flavored juice. Harper asked for a drink without any hesitation. Despite being young, doesn't she know to show some restraint? We don't have such sweet drinks since we don't have kids. Sorry, this auntie isn't very thoughtful. Am I not thoughtful? After all the care and devotion I've shown Matthew. Being called inconsiderate made me question what my marriage has been all about. I resisted the urge to glare at Matthew. Hurry up and bring some water. Prompted by Matthew, I hurried to get water. It's a bit old and small, but it looks like we can manage. Grace muttered, mocking our home. It may be old, but it's renovated and very comfortable for me. What an attitude. Mom, where's my room? Harper unabashedly spoke to her mom, Grace. I was taken aback by Harper's words. A room? What does she mean? This place is too small, you'll have to bear with it. What is this all about? I have a bad feeling about this. I don't know where to start, and I can't find the words to respond. Grace is having a tough time right now. It's difficult to work when Harper is still in elementary school. Of course, it's tough. Especially with Grace's selfish nature. It's sad she was cheated on and kicked out of her house. But I don't think it's up to us to take on all of that. Paul is the one at fault. What baffles me is why Grace isn't demanding alimony and child support from Paul. With alimony and child support, the Grace family shouldn't have to live like this. So, I've decided we'll support Grace along with Dad and Mom. Support? Did Matthew just say we're going to support Grace and her family? What does that mean? Oh, I see, they'll live here for a while until they find a place of their own. I realize it's just Matthew's unique way of expressing his love for his family. Please, take care of us. I find myself asking almost pleadingly. Yes, make yourself at home. Grace crosses her arms and looks down on me. It's as if I'm the one asking them to stay. There's some cleaning up to do around the house, so the move will be at the end of the month. With that, their arrival here is confirmed. Zoe, make sure you clear out the room by then. Though it was unbearable to give up my sewing, my hobby, or rather my reason for living, I told myself it was only for a short while. I had planned to send my belongings back to my parents' house for storage, but Matthew's next words left me shocked. Why don't you just get rid of that sewing machine and those clothes? That sounds like a good idea. It will make our lives easier. I was speechless. To think my only hobby was regarded so lightly. I felt as if not just my personality, but my entire life was being denied. After calming down, I noticed 4 half-drunk glasses left on the table. It seems Grace and her family didn't bother to clean up before they left. Matthew, meanwhile, was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with his mobile phone. I'm going out for a bit. Matthew left the house with an unusually cheerful demeanor. Was he that happy about the idea of living with his entire family? Meanwhile, I felt like I couldn't stand this life anymore. I picked up my mobile phone and made a call. As scheduled, Grace and her family moved in at the end of the month. Give me a hand, will you? There's so much stuff. When I went to the entrance, Matthew was there holding a cardboard box, with Grace and Harper wearing a backpack behind him. Welcome, or should I say, welcome back. Matthew, as if to say hurry up and help, shoved a box into my hands. There's more, so please hurry and bring them in. Grace and Harper walked past me, who was frozen in place with the box, and entered the house. Zoe, did you manage to clear out the room? Yes, I sent the sewing machine and the clothes I made to my parents' house the other day. I tried to sound as sarcastic as possible, but I wonder if it got through. I had asked my parents to carefully store them, as I would definitely need them later. Mom, where's my room? Harper innocently asked Grace the same question as before. With 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, how could they possibly arrange a separate room for a child? Sorry, but my room will be for Joseph and Olivia, so we can't provide a separate room for Harper. Grandpa and Grandma's room, huh? That's annoying. Harper muttered as she passed by me. The thought of living together like this weighed heavily on me. Is this how all kids are these days? Grace, sitting in the living room, said, I'm tired, Zoe. Can you get me something to drink? Demanding like a queen. I want something too. Peach juice would be nice. I realized I was still frozen in the entrance and headed back to the living room. Come on, don't just stand there. We didn't have peach juice. I got grape juice instead, is that okay? Huh? Why? I told you last time. You're useless. Harper criticized me with language that seemed too mature for an elementary school student. I nearly blurted out. Is that the only way you can talk? But I desperately held it back. Couldn't you have just ordered it online? Grace, far from apologizing for her daughter's rudeness, added her own criticism. I concluded to myself, like mother, like daughter. I'm sorry, this is all we have. What? Harper voices her displeasure without any reservation. Well, can't be helped. Harper, just bear with it. Zoe, what are you doing? Hurry up and help. At that moment, Matthew's loud voice came from the entrance. Yes, I'm coming now. Not wanting to upset anyone in Grace's presence, I hurried to the entrance. Finally, we managed to bring all the cardboard boxes inside. As I was unpacking and arranging Grace's belongings, Joseph and his family arrived. We'll be in your care. So, where's our room? This man isn't a bad person, but I wonder if lack of restraint runs in their blood. Since we're at it, how about we order some steaks? Zoe, call the steakhouse for us. I sigh internally. Surely, he intends to pay for this with the savings I had before we got married. And he dares talk about supporting them? As everyone gathers in the living room to eat the steaks, Matthew solemnly declares, "This is a new start for our family." Everyone, except me, nods in agreement. Indeed, let's keep up the good work. Joseph, with a steak in front of him, seems to be in a good mood, smiling. So, do you have any idea where you'll live next? My question wipes the smile off Matthew's face. Great, I've upset him again. What are you talking about? We're living together here at least until Harper is grown up. My world goes dark at his words. That's right, we're going to live here forever. Grace says it as if it's the most natural thing, but is it really? Our family is in trouble. Can you just leave them be? I can't see why we need to take care of them until Harper grows up. Listen, I'm the head of this household. It's natural for me to decide who we support and who lives with us. So what am I? Your housekeeper? Besides, when we have kids, Grace will help with the childcare. This is for your own good. For my good? That's a classic line of moral harassment. That's what Madison had said when we met last time. I search for an opportunity to retort, waiting for the right words. Why do we need Grace to raise them? I want to raise my own children. Why? Because Zoe, you want to work outside, right? Then work, I'll take care of them. I'll be the big sister, right? Harper answers with a smug look, raising questions about entrusting childcare to Grace, who raised such an unempathetic and graceless child. Right, if you work outside, it'll help with the finances, and it's good for you to get out, too. Matthew claps his hands joyfully. Yeah, support us with the money you earn. Grace stares at me with a devilish grin. I'll be grateful to have extra money besides my pension. Even Joseph looks forward to living off my earnings. What kind of family is this? Anyway, it's decided. I no longer have the energy to argue. Just say those words already. No, I can't take this. I mutter faintly. Matthew slams his fist on the table. My body reflexively wants to move, but I restrain myself. If you don't like it, then it's divorce. Divorce is the only option. I had been waiting for those words. Fine, divorce it is. You're okay with that, right? Matthew seems taken aback, not expecting me to agree to a divorce. He swallows his breath. Don't joke with me. You want a divorce? Were you always this cold-hearted? Joseph and Olivia look on in shock at Matthew and me. You can't possibly handle a divorce. Grace looks down on me, laughing mockingly. Cool your head. Matthew, red-faced, yells with spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and sister. If you don't want to, it's a divorce. What? But we're already divorced? What? Everyone is shocked by my declaration. That's right, we're already divorced. I pull out a copy of the divorce papers. But look, Matthew's signature isn't here. Without it, the divorce isn't valid, right? It's a court divorce. The papers have been filed with the court. You, naive as you are, couldn't possibly have managed that. Who's behind this? The sound of Matthew slamming his fist on the table echoes through the room, but I'm no longer surprised. I came up with everything myself. I asked a lawyer to handle the procedures, though. What nonsense are you spouting? You, of all people, you. Matthew is so flustered he doesn't know what to say. First off, Grace, you weren't cheated on, you were the one who cheated, right? Paul told me everything. Joseph glares at Grace. What's this all about? Everyone's gaze shifts to Grace. Paul gave up on reconciling after finding out Harper was the child of Grace's affair. It's not true, my sister's not at fault. Matthew hastily tries to defend her. Matthew, why are you defending her? Do you have something to hide? Matthew shakes his head frantically. I checked your credit cards. You might have taken the debit and cash cards from me, thinking you're managing everything, but the credit cards and the mobile phone contracts are all under my name since before we got married. So what? We're married, so it's our money. It's none of your business what I use it for. Then what about these frequent visits to hotels in the downtown area? I place the usage statement on the table. That's for work meetings. What about these luxury bags and wallets on the credit card statements? Did you squander money on some girl at a hostess bar? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not the type to be played. I'm in a serious relationship. I can't help but laugh at Matthew's foolish admission. Pride and stupidity make a dangerous combination. Grace looks at Matthew with a pale face. You just admitted to cheating. Joseph and Olivia seem disillusioned, their shoulders slumping. There's more, including call records. The other party has admitted to the affair. No wonder I couldn't reach them. Suddenly, Matthew stands up and tries to grab me by the collar. You better stop. Everything's been recorded and filmed. Matthew looks around and spots the mobile phone placed unnaturally. His momentum wanes, and he slumps back into his chair. Your outing after Grace and her family visited the apartment was to see that woman, wasn't it? Matthew seems to have lost the will to fight back. The story goes back 2 days. I had visited Madison to get a lawyer's advice. The lawyer said Matthew's actions were clear moral harassment, suggesting a codependent relationship. I was advised to separate from Matthew as soon as possible. First, we needed evidence, so I showed the credit card statements and call records. The lawyer, the man is quite the fool, isn't he? Laughed. I also played recordings of conversations, as suggested by Madison. There's no way you can't get a divorce with this. And he's been eating through your finances. According to the lawyer, I could claim a significant compensation from Matthew. Let's kick them out of the apartment as well. Madison encouraged me. Let's do it thoroughly. With a mischievous grin, I nodded firmly to their words. And now, with the help of a lawyer and a friend, I'm confronting Matthew and his family. This isn't the end. Matthew doesn't seem to have the energy to respond anymore. You won't be able to stay in this apartment either. Grace reacts the most to this. Why? Matthew bought this apartment, didn't he? That's when the lawyer steps in. Please, go ahead, counselor. The lawyer, who had been waiting at the entrance, comes into the living room. Let me explain. This apartment was jointly purchased by Matthew and Zoe. Zoe owns half of it. Moreover, Zoe is refusing to pay any more of the mortgage. Then Matthew should just pay for it. You can do that much, can't you, Matthew? Grace apparently hasn't given up on living here yet. It'll be tough but doable. Indeed, for Matthew, doubling the loan payments would be tough. What about the distribution of property to Zoe? Zoe's share will be paid in cash. There's no way I have that kind of money. Grace started crying, shaking Matthew's shoulder. Figure something out. You're the one who said to leave it to you. That woman is easy, just does whatever I say. And yet, this is the mess we're in? I handed Grace a document. There's compensation for Grace. It's all detailed in there. Grace looked at the document and collapsed right there. I had asked the lawyer to also request compensation for Paul. As for Grace's compensation, we'll discuss it separately. If Matthew's compensation isn't paid in one lump sum, we're considering garnishing wages from his company. No way! Matthew could only scratch his head and sob. Matthew will also be requesting compensation from the other woman. Suddenly, Matthew lifted his head, looking desperate. Please, not that. I beg you, please. Matthew pleaded earnestly, apologizing deeply. It didn't seem sane at all. If she finds out, I won't be able to live. He was rubbing his face, covered in snot and tears, against the floor. It was the first time I saw Matthew lose it like this, but I didn't feel a speck of sympathy or pity. Let's go, lawyer. Since that's the situation, it's better for everyone to find a new place to live soon. I left the apartment with a smile, glancing at Matthew crouching on the floor. Eventually, the divorce with Matthew was settled through mediation, not court. Joseph, Olivia, and Grace seem to have started living in a cramped, old apartment. Joseph directs traffic at road construction, while Olivia and Grace assemble parts at a nearby factory, managing somehow to make ends meet. Thanks to that, Paul has safely received his compensation. Matthew's affair was with the wife of his boss, who is also a senior in the rugby club. A betrayal in a company with strict hierarchies. The boss refuses to let him resign, seemingly determined to torment him for life. No wonder Matthew apologized. From now on, he'll continue to be a slave to his senior. I moved to a new apartment and am thoroughly enjoying my hobby of sewing. The dresses I sell online are popular, and I've been approached by a major select shop wanting to do business. Recently, a young buyer who really liked my clothes suggested starting a company together to make clothes on a more formal basis. I'm seriously considering getting involved, having been asked with such enthusiasm. I've also been invited to dinner by him, thinking this person with slightly droopy eyes and a kind look might be someone I can feel safe with. Until recently, I couldn't have imagined feeling so refreshingly happy, so I'm surprised at myself for being able to enjoy life this way. My mobile phone is vibrating, a call from him. I need to reply to his dinner invitation today. Just past 6 p.m., I heard the door opening from the entranceway. Our eldest son, Sam, was under the impression that we, his parents, were out attending a concert, unaware that it was a trap. Lately, we've noticed the disappearance of brand-name bags, accessories, and even the cherished watch that belonged to my late father. It seems like no one's home, just like you said over the phone. Sam, reassured, took out his smartphone and started making a call to someone. We were hidden, watching him closely. Kate? It's me. Just got to my parents' house. It seems the person on the other end was our daughter-in-law, Kate. Really? No one's there? Kate's voice filled the silent house. Sam has always had this odd habit of putting the phone on speaker mode when making calls. Oblivious that their own son is doing this to them, they're leisurely enjoying a concert. It's fine. Thanks to that, we get to have our little feast. Besides, what do an old couple with not much time left need with luxury brands anyway? They just get in the way. Exactly. Dad and Mom have money but hardly ever spend it. That's right. What's the point of keeping brand goods locked up in a closet? We're the ones putting it back into the economy by selling them. Remember that watch from last time? Sold it for $35,000. Wasn't expecting much for Grandpa's old thing, but it turned out quite well. That fetched a decent price. Contributing to us even after he's gone, Grandpa really was the best. They laughed loudly together. My name is Mary. I'm a 62-year-old housewife who works a part-time job 3 to 4 times a week. I live with my husband, Mike, who's 3 years my senior. Mike has worked in trading companies for many years. Even during the bubble economy, when everyone around was reveling, Mike, always serious, would say as he focused on his work from morning till the end of the day. If we don't work hard now, we'll suffer later. He always said this as if it were a habit, and worked hard from morning until his scheduled time. Standing by such a husband, I've decided not to rely solely on his pension and work as long as I can, thus I work at a nearby supermarket. While I hope it helps with our living expenses, more than that, I love working. Chatting about trivial matters with regular customers or having coffee with fellow part-timers, I feel much freer and happier than staying cooped up at home. I don't consider myself serious by nature, but apparently, we're a couple of similar dispositions. Must have caught on from Mike. I sometimes joke. Mike, who was devoted to his work, has a hobby, photography. He was keen enough to join the photography club during his student days and even submit to local photo contests. Right after retiring, he bought a new camera and exclaimed, "All right. Now I can enjoy taking pictures and live a free, slow life." I don't know much about cameras or how much it cost, but luxury was never a part of Mike's life. A bit of indulgence as a retirement gift is okay, isn't it? We have 2 adult children, both independent and married. Our house has become quite silent, but since our children live only 7 to 8 stations away, they find time to visit us now and then, so I've never felt lonely. Our daughter, Ellie, met a man at work, got married, and had a child. She seems busy juggling work and child-rearing, but on weekends, we enjoy lunch at our favorite cafe near the station. "Mom, you've got to hear this." She vents about her husband, her mother-in-law, her job, all the frustrations accumulated over time. Yet, by the time we part ways, her face always clears up. "See you next week then." Ellie's words carried no malice towards anyone, which reassured me that despite the complaints, she seemed to be living happily. On the other hand, our eldest son, Sam, is married too, but he rarely talks about his married life, so I don't know much about it. Sometimes, Sam brings his daughter-in-law, Kate, to visit, and it seems like he is whipped by Kate. Sam has always been introverted, not one to express his opinions clearly. Sam needs a strong-willed woman like Kate. Mike blurted out about Ellie once. That's why I've decided not to meddle too much in Sam and his wife's affairs. Then, one day, we received news that Mike's former boss had passed away. Mike, looking downcast, said, He was a great man. Taught me everything from scratch when I was just starting out and knew nothing. He reminisced about the distant past. As Mike was getting dressed in a suit he took out of the closet, he suddenly asked, "Hey, have you seen my tie?" He had finished changing into his shirt and pants and was just about to tie his necktie when he came downstairs. "Aren't the ties always in the drawer?" The place for storing ties had always been fixed, and they were never stored elsewhere after coming back from the cleaners. "Did you check all the way at the back of the drawer?" I wondered if it was pushed too far back and became hard to see from the front. "Of course I checked. But I still can't find it." Just to be sure, I also went upstairs and checked the drawer, but as Mike said, the tie was nowhere to be found. That's strange. It should always be here. Saying that, I stared at Mike's profile. What? Stop staring at me like that. Mike looked back at me, puzzled. Are you sure you don't remember? Maybe you accidentally put it somewhere else after it came back from the cleaners? Why would I do that? The frustration of not finding the supposed tie combined with the urgency of the funeral's approaching time made Mike raise his voice more than necessary. Sorry, I just snapped. Mike apologized sincerely, but I was more concerned about. Are you really okay, dear? I was worried whether Mike had already started to forget things. Sensing my concern, "Hey, I'm not senile yet," he strongly retorted. We emptied the drawer and checked everything again, but still, no tie was to be found. Just in case, I checked other drawers as well, and then I realized a fact. This is strange. It's not just the tie that's missing. Really? Indeed. The ring Grandma gave me and the necklace are also gone. Should we check other places as well? Yes. It's scary to think that there might be more missing items. We thoroughly searched the closets and storage shelves. My handbag is gone too. And the shoes Ellie gave me for my birthday. They were all expensive brand items. The travel bag I used for business trips is missing too. I hadn't used it for a while but planned to take it on a trip with you someday. It was expensive. A dark cloud seemed to spread in my heart. Could it be a burglary? Should we report this to the police? Mike agreed immediately, but then regained his composure and said, "No, let's first check if the debit cards are missing. We'll report to the police after confirming that." The debit cards were still in their usual place. Good. It doesn't seem to be a burglary. I was relieved, but not completely at ease. But if it wasn't a burglary, why have only Mike's tie and the luxury items disappeared? However, Mike, reassured by the fact that the debit cards were still there, said, "It's odd that the brand items are gone, but they'll turn up eventually." Then, looking at his watch, "We're running out of time for the funeral. Didn't we have an old tie somewhere?" "That won't do. Its color has faded, and it's not presentable in public anymore." "So, what do we do now?" "Forget the tie. We'll buy one on the way there." "That's probably best." Mike hurriedly left the house. Although Mike had said things would turn up eventually, I kept replaying his words in my mind. Maybe we just misplaced them and forgot. Trying to convince myself that. I wondered if there had been any event recently that would have caused us to move everything around in the house. But I couldn't remember anything. Could it be that I'm starting to forget things too? Oh no. Am I starting to forget things too? Both of us together. Overwhelmed by anxiety, I called Ellie as dusk fell. "Mom, what's up?" "Sorry to bother you, especially when you're busy. I really feel bad about it." Ellie must have just come back from work, tired. Thinking about her preparing dinner and bathing the children, I felt somewhat hesitant to rely on her. Something odd happened at home. I told Ellie about all the brand items that had gone missing from our house. The debit cards were left untouched, right? That is indeed strange. Then, after a moment of thought on the other end, Ellie suggested, "Why don't you try installing surveillance cameras? Aren't those expensive?" Don't worry. The cameras these days are more affordable and high performance compared to before. Plus, they come with features that allow you to check the footage anytime via a smartphone app. That does sound convenient. But it's also kind of scary. What if it captures some stranger lurking around? Ellie laughed it off. That's exactly why you install surveillance cameras. Seeing my hesitation, Ellie excitedly proposed, "Let's do this. I'll buy a surveillance camera to try out. I was planning to go to the store tomorrow because the air conditioner is acting up. I'll pick up a camera while I'm there." Ellie then installed the purchased cameras in every room of our house. There we go. I'll check the footage daily through the smartphone app. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you turned out to be such a caring daughter. Mom, you're exaggerating. With those words, Ellie left with a bright smile. A week later, the previously cheerful Ellie called with a heavy tone. I have something important to discuss, so I'm coming over tonight. Despite it being a weekday, Ellie left work early to come to our house. It seemed there was an emergency that took precedence over her own family. Please don't be shocked, but listen. Ellie started gravely. Sam has been snooping around the house. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. Holding the spare key to our house, Ellie continued. This key isn't just with me, right? Sam has one too. Indeed, Ellie could use that spare key to enter our house. The same was true for Sam, our child, just like Ellie. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to simply nod in agreement. Sam wouldn't do such a thing. I understand you want to believe in Sam. He's my brother too, and I don't want to believe he would do something like this. Before showing me. But, Mom, can you still say the same after seeing this? Ellie then showed me a video on her smartphone. It was footage recorded by the surveillance camera. I'll spare you the details, but the person in this footage is Sam, sneaking around the house when you and Dad are out, and not just once, but 3 times in 1 week. The quality of surveillance camera footage these days is much clearer than it used to be. No matter how much I wanted to deny it. It's not Sam. It's someone else entirely. The evidence was too clear to ignore. It was unmistakably Sam. I didn't want to believe it at first, but with such clear footage, it's hard to defend him. I still wanted to believe in Sam, even if just a little. But if all these mysterious disappearances were indeed Sam's doing, everything made sense. Stealing debit cards would have immediately alerted us and involved the police. But the disappearance of items we wouldn't regularly check, like handbags and accessories, could go unnoticed for a while. Or we might never have realized it at all. Sam was counting on that. Could it be even that too? I pulled out a small box from the back of the closet and opened it. It's gone. The watch that was supposed to be in here has disappeared. That watch, it was Grandpa's favorite, wasn't it? Ellie murmured, looking at my father's portrait. My father, Ben, to whom Ellie refers as her grandfather, was known as a serious and strict figure at work, feared by many, but he was gentle with his family. Without any particular hobbies, Ben's pride was the watch he always wore. I felt a surge of anger towards Sam for taking Ben's beloved watch without permission. Unforgivable. To steal Ben's precious watch. Even if he is our son, I won't let this go easily. Mike was even more visibly furious than I was. Ben had doted on Mike like his own son, often taking him out for drinks. Ben was always so good to me. His words saved me whenever work got tough, Mike said, reminiscing about Ben, tears rolling down his cheeks. Clenching his fists tightly, he declared, "Sam is disregarding Ben's way of life. I absolutely cannot forgive him." Mike was ready to confront our son and his wife with fury. As Mike stormed towards the entrance with heavy steps, Ellie and I desperately held him back. "Please calm down, Mike. I understand how you feel, but we need to ascertain the truth first. The footage clearly shows it. Isn't that enough evidence?" "It's too early for that. If it's said that Sam was only temporarily taking them, that's the end of it." Mike bit his lip in frustration and asked, "So, what should we do?" "I have a suggestion," Ellie said, calming the enraged Mike. She looked at both Mike and me, then spoke slowly for us to understand. "We set a trap for Sam." The next day, I casually called Sam, pretending everything was normal. "Mike got some concert tickets from an old colleague. He's invited me out for an evening. It's been a while since we've gone out together." On the other end, Sam, without any hint of suspicion. "That's great. Have a good time together. Dad has been working hard all these years, after all. Now's the time to relax and enjoy some quality time as a couple." For someone who usually spoke little, Sam's verbosity surprised me. "It's clear Sam wants to keep Dad and Mom away from the house. His true motives are obvious," Ellie whispered from behind. After hanging up, I was overwhelmed with a sense of emptiness for having to deceive Sam and sadness from his betrayal. "Anyway, as soon as it gets dark this evening, we'll turn off all the lights and make the house look empty. We'll make Sam believe no one's home." Mike and I nodded in agreement. As evening fell, we turned off all the lights in the house. "Everything's set now." In the darkness, lit only by moonlight, we waited in silence for the unsuspecting Sam to arrive. Just past 6 p.m., we heard the door opening from the entrance. Sam had fallen for Ellie's trap without realizing it. "Mom? Dad? It's me, Sam. You're not here, right? You went out to the concert, didn't you?" Even though he knew no one was there, Sam talked to himself, probably checking if anyone was left inside. It could be a ritual before he began his theft. "Just like you said on the phone, it seems no one's home." Sam, reassured, took out his smartphone and started making a call. We watched him closely from our hiding spot. "Kate? It's me, Sam. I've just arrived at my parents' house." The person on the other end seemed to be our daughter-in-law, Kate. "Really? No one's there?" Kate's voice echoed through the silent house. Sam has always had this peculiar habit of using speaker mode during calls. "It's all clear. I've called out several times to make sure no one's here," Sam replied with a laugh. Unaware their own son is doing this to them, they're leisurely at a concert. "That's fine. Thanks to that, we get our chance. Besides, what do an old couple nearing the end of their lives need with luxury brands anyway?" "Exactly. Dad and Mom have money but never spend it. Right? Keeping luxury brands in the closet without using them makes no sense. It's when we sell them and turn them into cash that we can actually contribute to the economy of this country." Speaking of which, that watch sold for $35,000. Didn't expect much from Grandpa's old-fashioned watch, but it turned out to be quite a thing. Well, isn't that something? Contributing to us even after his death, Grandpa really was the best, they said, laughing loudly together. Well, shall we get started? After ending the call, Sam, as if gearing up for a big task, started rummaging through closets and drawers. I've checked here before. These look old and probably won't fetch much. This could bring in a decent sum if sold. Sam muttered to himself while searching for valuable items. It seemed he had already stolen the apparently valuable items. Looks like we're running out of stock, Sam said to himself, tossing a wooden sculpture, whose value was uncertain, into a sports bag he had prepared. Just then, all the lights in the house turned on simultaneously. "What? What's happening?" Sam exclaimed, sounding almost like a scream. "Sam!" Ellie burst out of the room she was hiding in, and upon seeing her, Sam panicked and tried to flee. However, he was easily caught by Mike, who had been hiding in another room. "Let go! I was wrong. I'll confess everything. Ouch! To think our own son was stealing from us. There's nothing more heartbreaking. Sorry, Mom." Sam, drained of any energy to make excuses or resist, sincerely apologized. "Tell us everything honestly. Why did you do such a foolish thing? You were never someone to steal from others." Mike looked down at Sam with pity, pressing him for answers. "Life was tough," Sam began in a low voice. "It all started when Kate's spending became increasingly reckless. Think about our living situation a bit." Sam, working in sales at a small company, was feeling the strain as expenses exceeded income. "Don't take away my joy in life. I don't want to end as a woman controlled by a poor man like you. If you don't like it, let's get divorced. There are plenty of men who would want me." Kate had even hinted at divorce, and Sam, completely smitten by her. "I just didn't want to get a divorce." Unbelievable. Ellie sighed deeply, holding her forehead. "So, you started stealing valuable things while Dad and Mom were away?" "I can't believe it. I planned to redeem the pawned items with the money I made. But Kate's spending only increased, and the money never grew. In desperation, I turned to gambling in casinos, hoping for a quick fortune, only to sink deeper. You both are fools." I was too stunned to even feel angry anymore. We then instructed Sam to call his wife Kate over. Sam, looking pale. "Please, not that," but reluctantly agreed, realizing that addressing the root cause was the only way to solve the problem. "You don't have a choice. Just follow our instructions." After getting scolded by Mike, Sam has no choice but to call Kate. "Those were just unwanted items, right? We were merely putting them to good use. You should be thanking us." Kate, far from showing any remorse upon discovering everything was out, aggressively justified their actions. "Is this even a crime? It's not, right? It's a family matter. The police won't interfere with such. Don't you even know that?" Kate, confidently misusing legal terms, smiled smugly at Ellie. I laughed mockingly, replying with a smile. "Indeed, it might be difficult to punish you criminally. But civilly, that's a different story." Kate faltered for a moment but quickly recovered. "That's just shallow knowledge from amateurs. When we hire a skilled lawyer, it'll be you, Mary, who'll be embarrassed in court." While impressed by the articulate daughter-in-law, I shared. "The original owner of the watch you pawned, Ben, was a famous lawyer representing America." Looking at Ben's portrait, I said, and Sam, with a look of surprise, responded. "I've never heard such a story before." "You were too young to remember, but journalists and TV crews used to come to our house every day. Come to think of it, I do have a vague memory of something like that." "So what? What does Ben being a renowned lawyer have to do with you?" After all, you're just a layperson when it comes to the law. Kate expressed her anger openly. Kate, listen to the end of what people have to say. I silenced Kate and then continued. The truth is, I admired Dad and once aspired to be a lawyer myself. I rented an apartment to study for the bar exam, but the path to becoming a lawyer was narrower than I thought. After failing several times, I met Mike and ended up getting married. It's true, if you call me an amateur, but I do have more legal knowledge than most people. And I'm quite confident I could win a civil case against you too. But Kate was left speechless, without a comeback. The next day, I promptly sought advice from one of my father's old lawyer friends about our situation. Are you sure this is what you want? The lawyer carefully confirmed my intentions, to which I replied, even if he's my own son, I've decided not to hold back. My anger towards Sam and Kate's excessive actions had reached its peak. Together with the lawyer, I proceeded with the civil lawsuit proceedings without hesitation. Sam and Kate were forced out of the apartment they were living in. Mom, are you really going to go that far? Sam complained over the phone. That apartment was rented under Mike's name, wasn't it? Then you have no right to complain. I coldly rebuffed Sam. Losing their place to go, Sam and Kate apparently headed to Ellie and her husband's apartment, but they were so persistent that my husband lost his temper and called the police. Ellie amusingly reported this during our weekend lunch. Later, Sam and Kate found a small apartment to live in, but Kate ended up cheating and ran away. Men should be rich and handsome, after all. She left Sam with those parting words. The rumor of his wife leaving spread quickly at work, and unable to bear the stares, Sam was driven to resign. At that point, maybe we went a bit too far in teaching them a lesson. We felt. After losing both his job and his family, Mike called Sam and set a condition. From now on, you'll change your ways, work hard, and you yourself will buy back that pond watch. On that condition, Sam was allowed to live with us again. Since then, Sam has been working diligently at a construction company introduced by Mike, without a single complaint. One day, Mike, with a sly grin, said, "Take a look at this," and discreetly showed me a familiar watch from his pocket. Oh, Dad's. In truth, Mike had already bought back Ben's watch from the pawn shop. Since Sam is trying to work hard, let's keep the watch a secret for now. That sounds good. A secret shared between us as a couple. Looking at the watch, I mused. We can't turn back the hands of time. But I believe we can regain lost trust. Though, it might not be easy. Yes. Mike smiled gently in agreement. Until just now, I was really wondering if this was the right moment, but it was my husband Bert's words that made up my mind. Standing tall with arrogance, he said, "Bring me a beer." In front of him, I presented the divorce papers. Let's get a divorce. I've reached my limit. At the mention of divorce, Bert didn't show any confusion, just a calm face. How can he keep such a face? Am I just being naive? No, that's not it. Bert doesn't believe I would actually go through with the divorce. He thinks it's just a threat. Proof of that is Bert's aggressive response. Since you're the one bringing this up, you take care of our 6 kids. Don't expect any savings or child support from me. I've realized that no matter what, Bert always puts himself first. After signing the divorce papers, Bert threw them at me with a laugh, saying, "Here you go. I think I've really been patient until now. I've devoted my precious time to such a person, so nobody would oppose this divorce. Even though I've decided on the divorce, I still feel sad about Bert's selfish words and actions. But this is where it ends. His behavior will cast a shadow over his life from now on. My name is Caddy. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. I used to work as an employee at a certain company, but I quit due to health issues. I met Bert through an introduction from an acquaintance, and we later got married. Bert, who is 10 years older than me, is a very responsible and serious person. That Bert seemed like a wonderful person to me. I thought I could have a fulfilling life with him. Bert also said to me, "You're a wonderful woman. I want to be with you forever." There was no lie in his words, and I immediately accepted Bert's proposal. Life with Bert was sheer happiness. Although he wasn't much of a talker, we had very calm moments together. I'm glad I married him. Time passed, and our first child was born. "Caddy, you did well," Bert said, sending me words of appreciation and smiling kindly. That was a peak of happiness, now a fond memory. 2 years after our eldest son was born, our second child came, and a year later, our third. Now we have 6 children. With 6 kids, every day feels like a battlefield. Time flies by in the blink of an eye. Still, life with the kids is fun and full of happiness every day, never without smiles. Except for just one thing. Welcome back. Was today busy? Yeah. Our eldest son Ethan just graduated from high school this year. He's now working as an employee at a local food manufacturer. We really wanted him to go to college, but he didn't want to. When Ethan was about to graduate from high school, Bert and I suggested he go to college. But he refused, saying he had something he wanted to do. Bert, expecting him to go to college, was furious. The argument between the two began, and the room was filled with a tense atmosphere. Bert has always been uncontrollable once he gets angry. Perhaps because of his serious personality, he demands perfection in everything, even from those around him. Bert seems to lose his temper immediately when things don't go his way. This is no different with his children. That day, an enraged Bert lashed out at Ethan with harsh words, unbecoming of an adult. Eventually, Ethan fell ill from the shock and collapsed right there. "Ethan? Are you okay?" "Bert, that's way too much." "Too much? This kid, see, he won't understand unless you say it like this. Betraying my expectations. He owes his life to me, and he dares to betray me." Trying to approach Ethan again, Bert was stopped by me clinging onto him from behind. "Stop it. Let go. It's your coddling that's the cause of all this." Then Bert turned towards me and raised his hand high. Instinctively, I curled up, closing my eyes tightly. But Bert, shrugging me off, stormed out of the house. Before we married, I never thought Bert had this side to him. Sure, he always demanded perfection and could become verbally harsh when things didn't go as planned or were imperfect, but that was about it. I never imagined it could be this severe. Bert returned home when the children had all gone to bed. Looking somewhat remorseful after cooling down. "Ethan asleep? Sorry about earlier. I just lost it. That's in the past now. But if you're going to apologize, apologize to Ethan, not me. He's working hard every day, isn't he? Shouldn't we be supporting him instead?" I couldn't forgive Bert's actions. Hardening my heart, I confronted him with harsh words. But then, I realized something. Bert wasn't getting my message. And this became the trigger for our lives to take a turn for the worse. 2 weeks passed. Bert constantly had a scowl on his face, and a heavy atmosphere pervaded our home. The children seemed to notice this too and naturally started avoiding Bert, hardly ever seeing him except at dinner time. This couldn't continue without risking the breakdown of our family. "The kids are scared, and I wish you could show a little more kindness." I said, only to be met with a sharp glare from Bert. You're the one telling me this? It's your words and actions that led to this situation. And now you're blaming me? That's rich. Bert was still holding on to what I had said before. I'm busy, unlike you, the housewife. Working at a major company is different from what the others do. And you, having lived such a boring life, should recognize that and choose your words more carefully from now on. Does he think he's the most important just because he works for a major company? Such an attitude is only going to make others see him as a nuisance. He can't see that, which is why he looks down on everyone else, including me. Actually, maybe Bert looks down on me the most. Especially, these last 2 weeks after the incident with Ethan have been particularly bad. Hey, I come home tired from work. It's the wife's job to offer words of comfort first. Are the kids more important than your husband to you? That's not it, but... Wait. Put your clothes on properly. Even as I spoke with Bert, the children, fresh out of the bath, would run around the room without dressing. Trying to get them dressed was futile. They wouldn't listen. Are you even listening to me? Be quiet. It's irritating. Enraged that I prioritized the children over him, Bert swept items off the table in anger. Boxes of tissues and small personal items scattered across the floor. Startled by the unusual noise and scene, the children froze, looking at Bert with fear in their eyes. Ethan, who had been lounging on the sofa in the back living room, noticed the commotion and looked over. An uneasy atmosphere filled the house. But soon, Ethan took all the children to the back room, saying, "Let's go over there." My relief that the children were spared was short-lived. Bert grabbed me by the collar, shouting, "Don't you dare say that again!" Before storming off to the bedroom. It was the first time I felt fear towards Bert. One day, upon returning from work, Bert looked at me and said, "Isn't it strange? They're supposed to carry my blood, yet how did such failures come to be? Come to think of it, you dropped out, didn't you? That's why we have such failures for children." Mystery solved. Unbelievable words. How could he call his own children failures? And in a voice loud enough for all the kids to hear. I didn't care what he said about me. The fact he mocked me for being a dropout didn't matter. I could endure that. But I couldn't stand him speaking ill of the children. Especially not from their own parent. However, Bert's contempt continued. If I made dinner, he'd say, "This is what poor people eat, not something for an elite like me." Or on another day, he'd complain about the housework not being perfect. Coming home tired to be greeted by this messy, dirty entrance. You're a housewife, aren't you? Shouldn't it be clean everywhere? Not just the entrance, but the hallways, windows, toilets, baths, everything. What's the reason for not cleaning perfectly? Explain it to me so I can understand. And he'd say these things intentionally in front of the children. This went on for 2 weeks. Bert seemed to enjoy watching my spirit break little by little. I can't take this anymore. The children were sound asleep. Beside them, I was under a blanket, cursing my life. Why did I fall in love with this man? Why did I marry him? The more I thought, the more my heart raced. Tears flowed. Then, it happened. Suddenly, a gentle, somewhat low voice asked, "Are you okay?" I peeked out from under the blanket with a tear-stained face and saw Ethan looking at me with concern. "Mom." "Ethan. I'm sorry." Ethan seemed to understand everything with just that one word. He hugged me without saying a word, gently rubbing my back. Ethan's hands felt so big and warm. When did he grow up to be so admirable? Mom, you've done a great job. No matter what Bert said, I had endured and tolerated it. Despite being scorned and looked down upon, I had persevered. But it was time to end that. Ethan's words of encouragement helped me make my decision. Thank you. I'm all right now, so you go back to sleep, Ethan. You have an early day tomorrow. Okay. Relieved by my words, Ethan returned to his room. Next to me, the children, unaware of Ethan's visit, slept on. Looking at their faces made me question my decision. But there was no turning back now. No, I had to make a decision. But how will we manage to live from here on out? My determination and anguish swirled in my mind. Then, Ethan came back into the room with a document in hand. Mom, this. What is this? I scanned the document from top to bottom, handed to me by Ethan. If this was true, there might be a way out. I felt a sense of possibility. A feeling that it's going to be all right. The next day, I waited for Bert to return from work. But, of course, on such a day, Bert was late due to overtime, not returning even by 7 p.m. I had dinner with the children first, but he still hadn't returned. I was considering whether to bathe the younger children. I'll do it, said Ethan, offering to take over. He knew what I was planning to do. Thank you. Eventually, Bert returned around 9 p.m. Looking tired as usual from apparent overtime. Hey, bring me a beer quick. If you know your husband is coming home tired, you should have the beer ready. How useless can a wife be? I had been wondering if this was the right moment, but Bert's words just now made up my mind. Standing boldly in front of Bert, who demanded a beer, I presented the divorce papers. What? What's this? Let's get a divorce. I've reached my limit. Bert, faced with the word divorce, didn't show any confusion, just a calm face. How can he remain so composed? Am I just being naive? No, that's not it. Bert doesn't believe I would really go through with the divorce. He thinks it's just a threat. Proof of that, Bert spoke with confidence. Since you're the one who started this, you take care of the 6 kids. Don't expect any savings or child support from me. It was clear that Bert always put himself first. After signing the divorce papers, Bert threw them at me with a laugh, saying, "Here. I think about how much I've endured until now. No one would oppose this divorce, given all the time I've dedicated to such a person." Even deciding on divorce, Bert's selfishness and attitude brought sadness. But that's as far as it goes. His actions would only cast a shadow over his own life from now on. That night, after confronting Bert with the divorce and while the children and Bert were asleep, I prepared to leave the house with Ethan. Ethan, knowing it would come to this, silently packed and prepared. Thanks to doing it together, we managed to leave the house early in the morning. Bert went to work as usual, but when he returned, no one would be here. That's when he would realize the situation he's in. The new apartment was about an hour's drive away, located a bit away from a residential area in a high-rise building. The children were thrilled the moment they stepped into the room. I never imagined we could live in a place like this. We ended up living in what's called a high-rise due to certain circumstances. All thanks to Ethan. A month has passed since the divorce. Unlike before, I no longer feel unreasonable stress. The children seem happier too. What was the point of our previous life? Life seemed so much more enjoyable, indicating just how awful living with Bert had been. But that's already in the past, and there's no use dwelling on it. Yet, Bert's selfishness wouldn't let me forget. After divorcing Bert and moving to the high-rise, Bert began calling incessantly. Again. I was getting fed up with Bert's calls. The children didn't seem to know who was calling, but as usual, only Ethan seemed to be aware. From Dad again? Yes, it's been intense lately. I can't ignore it anymore, can I? I can answer it. Mom, you're busy, and you don't have time to deal with Dad, right? Ethan was right. One of the reasons for moving here was a job opportunity. The company I had worked for before wanted me back. But dealing with Bert was something I had to handle myself. It's okay. I'll deal with him. Then, immediately after, a call from Bert came in. Was there something he so desperately wanted to say? It was unusual for him to keep contacting me like this. Hello? Hey, what's this all about? I wasn't informed about any of this. So now he noticed? I was going to say. Then paused, thinking maybe I should wait and see a bit longer. You always jump into things and get too heated. Try to be a bit more calm when you speak. But Bert, far from calming down, only grew more aggressive. Calm down. You think you can say whatever you want because it's not about you. You've caused a huge mess. That's why you need to explain what the huge mess is. If it's because of me, what exactly has gotten worse? Come on, you're not a child, and you're a big company employee, right? Then explain it clearly so everyone can understand. Maybe the mention of being a big company employee hit a nerve, as Bert briefly regained his composure, only to quickly lose it again and start on a completely different topic. Getting cocky, are you? Who do you think has allowed you to live comfortably up to now? It's all thanks to me. Why does the conversation always veer off in a completely different direction? I had a pretty good idea of what Bert was trying to say. Resigned, I decided to make things clear in a way my husband could understand. There's a lot I want to say, but... Okay, let me first explain the situation you're in. Why it has come to this. What? It's tiresome, but expecting anything more from Bert would be a waste of time. You're trying to say you've been kicked out of the house because we got divorced, right? That's right. It's all your fault. Yes. We don't need to go into that now. Just listen to what I have to say. Really pathetic. To think a 50-year-old can't even listen to others. It felt like I was explaining things to a child, making it as simple as possible. First, it's not my fault you were kicked out of the house. The rent and living expenses for that house were being paid by Ethan, not you. That can't be true. You were receiving living expenses from me every month, weren't you? Yes, I did receive them. $100, though. With 6 children and living in a decent apartment, what kind of husband only contributes $100 a month? If it weren't for Ethan, the rest of the family, excluding you, would be homeless by now. No, that's... Bert said. Back in the day, $100 was enough to live on, so you should manage. Explaining why he only contributed $100 to the household expenses. Naturally, $100 was nowhere near enough, so I reluctantly used my savings from before I was married to scrape by. Then one day, Ethan suddenly handed me some money. Use this. What? What is this? It's my salary for this month. From now on, I'll support us, so you don't have to worry. Save your money for the younger siblings. I was moved to tears. Ethan was thinking of the family more than anyone else. Since then, Ethan worked tirelessly every day to support our family. Now, with me divorced and Bert on his own, it was natural that he couldn't pay the rent or the living expenses. After all, neither I nor Ethan were there. If only he realized that this situation was serious, he could have done something about it. It's because you're too focused on playing around with women that things turned out this way. How do you know that? Ethan saw you. He was taken to a restaurant by his coworkers and saw you with a woman he didn't recognize. It was your favorite lady from that high-class club behind the station, right? Apparently, you've been lavishing her with a significant amount of money every month. All this information came from Ethan. Bert's momentum vanished completely, and he was utterly disheartened. However, my frustration with him was far from over. Just then, he said, "Help me." "Excuse me?" My promotion got cancelled. Despite working diligently for the company all these years, if things continue this way, I'll be overtaken by the juniors, and my peers will leave me behind. My life is over. It was a pitiful story. And what is he saying now, after all this time? It was clear from the time we were married that Bert wasn't going to be promoted. You seem to be misunderstanding something. Of course, you're not getting promoted. You act all high and mighty without being competent at your job. You blame your mistakes on your subordinates and dodge responsibility. Yet, you try to curry favor with your superiors. No company would promote someone like that. Confronted with the truth, Bert had nothing to rebut. Do you understand how wrong you were? Now, change your attitude and start living your life properly. I thought about pressing further, but realized that saying anything more would be pointless and was about to hang up. However, Bert, perhaps out of desperation, suddenly begged for reconciliation. "Let's start over." "Excuse me?" "Let's try again, you and I. This time, I'll properly take care of the children and give you my entire salary. We won't rely on Ethan's money. I'll support us. Let's forget everything and start anew, building a wonderful family and life together. We can do it. With the new me, we surely can. So, let's start over." Had he eaten something odd? His words sent chills down my spine. Ethan, listening nearby, looked more dismayed than I had ever seen him. "Do you even understand what you're saying? Starting over is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Even if you transformed into a wonderful person, it's impossible. No matter how much money you offer, it's impossible. Just hearing your voice makes it impossible. It's simply impossible. That's all. There's no way that's true. You just don't understand the risk of letting go of a big company employee like me." Big company employee, huh? I hadn't wanted to go this far for the sake of Bert's pride, but it seemed necessary to make him give up. "Listen, you always bring up being a big company employee, but do you even understand your current situation? Do you realize you're the top candidate for layoffs in the company? Or better yet, do you know where I work?" "Where?" "At N Corporation. The same company as you. I work there as the Chief of General Affairs. Though it's remote work." "What?" Bert must have never imagined that I was working as the Chief of General Affairs at the same company. Shocked, he murmured something unintelligible over the phone. I originally worked as a sales department manager at N Corporation, but the continuous busy days led to a deterioration in my health, and I resigned. Feeling down because I couldn't work, which had been my only joy, I was introduced to Bert by an acquaintance. Surprised to hear he worked at the same company, I wanted to say, "Me too." But Bert bragged so much about working at N Corporation that I ended up not saying anything. He kept bragging about it even after we got married. But now, knowing that I had been a manager at N Corporation and had taken the position of General Affairs Manager, his boasting had become meaningless. "But why suddenly a General Affairs Manager?" "It's thanks to Ethan." "Ethan's?" The president of the company where Ethan works was a classmate of N Corporation's president. Through conversations between the presidents, Ethan's work ethic became a topic of discussion, and it was then revealed that I was Ethan's mom. The president of N Corporation personally sent me a letter through Ethan, asking me to come back. Thanks to Ethan's support, I decided to return to work. What surprised me more was that the president arranged for our family to live in the high-rise condo he used to live in. It was a gesture of gratitude for returning to N Corporation, but I was astonished to learn it was such a luxurious high-rise condo. It was rented out to us at a very low price, considering it was for the sake of the young children. I am deeply grateful to the president for allowing us to live in such an incredible place. That's the story. Then, Bert began to lose his mind over the phone, to the point it was unmistakable. I could hear Bert yelling in a voice I had never heard before, and while I couldn't make out the exact situation over the phone, it was clear there was commotion around him. Alongside that, there were also voices that sounded like multiple security guards saying, "Don't move!" A few minutes later, I heard the sound of police sirens, followed by a moment of silence, and then Bert's shouting alongside the shouts of police officers. Finally, the sound of the police sirens faded away, growing distant. I later learned from an acquaintance that Bert had caused a scene at the entrance of N Corporation during work and was warned by security guards. His defiant attitude led to a call to the police, and he was taken away. After being held for questioning, he was eventually released. Naturally, this incident led to his termination from the company, and now he is reportedly living on the streets without a home. But there's still something Bert needs to do for us. It involves paying alimony and child support. To ensure he pays these, we've hired a lawyer and are prepared for battle. We've caught Bert, who is now living on the streets, to demand alimony and child support. Bert is said to be working desperately every day to make these payments. The former big company employee is nowhere to be seen. As for me, I'm leading a busy life as an executive of N Corporation, working from home. Of course, I'm always surrounded by my young children. Balancing work and childcare is challenging, but I have Ethan, who is more reliable than anyone. Mom, I've bathed everyone, so it's your turn now. Thank you. Take your time. What I think now is that divorcing was truly the right decision. Had we forced ourselves to continue the marriage, not just my life, but also the lives of my children, would have been ruined. I'm only grateful to Ethan for leading us to make this decision. From now on, I plan to live happily with our family of 7.